Today's edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro, PDF Pen for iPhone, PDF Pen for iPad, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander Touch, and Disk Label. Find out more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Welcome back to Mac Voices. This is the Talk of the Mac community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I think I'm right. I think for the very first time in 2015, Mr. Joe Kissell. Joe, it's great to see you. And
it feels like it's been, forever.
Yeah, happy belated New Year, or whatever's
Thank you.
appropriate.
And I will take that to also imply a happy belated birthday.
I missed it. When was your birthday?
I aged. Haven't you noticed?
No.
I'm a year old. Yeah, no, my birthday was on January 9th.
Oh.
It's easy to remember because it's the same day as Richard Nixon. So,
How could I miss it?
I don't know. But, yes, there were all kinds of holidays anyway. And happy holidays to you, too.
Yeah. So to celebrate your return to Mac Voices in 2015, we get to talk not about just one Take Control book, but two Take Control books.
Yeah.
But of course, as with so many things with you, there's always a twist to that.
There are always twists.
Yeah.
In fact, we just we skipped over an entire book that, there was, I'll just mention there was an update to my FILEVAULT book, and it was a free update for Yosemite compatibility, and we kind of figured, there's just not that much interesting new to say about it, so we'll just skip that because we got more stuff.
Okay, so now you've made it three new Take Control books in one show. That's pretty good. So that was Take Control of FILEVAULT. That's out, and the update was for Yosemite.
Right.
So the next new one, which we talked about whether we would do a show because there's not a lot new, but there's enough new to maybe touch on it, and that's Take Control of Dropbox.
Yeah, I try as best I can to make my books reasonably evergreen. But when the stuff that you're writing about is changing every few months, your books inevitably go out of date. So Dropbox is one of those things where they kept the app kept changing, and the website kept changing, and the features they were offering kept changing, and they had this new sort of Dropbox Pro pricing thing with extra features for Pro subscribers, and features went away and features were renamed, and even when we finally got to the point where it's like, well, we really got to update this book because it's too far out of sync with reality. The day before I was ready to hand it in, more stuff changed. Like Dropbox went and changed all of their icons. So you can't keep up with this stuff, but I try. So the point of the update to the Dropbox book is to make it current with everything that's happened in the last however long it's been, 9 or 10 months or something like that, since the book was last updated. And there has been quite a bit.
First of all, I want to compliment you for these minor updates. It's interesting because you don't even feel like it's worth a full interview. But at the same time, if you're looking to stay up to date on this stuff, or if you're just picking it up for the first time, then that makes your newly revised edition completely viable. So I still think that's a great idea, and it's sort of in the whole spirit of the Take Control books.
We try. I've written 50 books, and it's impossible to keep them all up to date. It's just, we try, but I'm several books behind, and some of them are just not going to make it. However much I would like to update them. We'll talk in the future about a little twist to that too. But as conditions permit, we try to keep our books up to date for as long as we can. We like, for us as author and publisher and stuff, it's great for the books to have a long tail. They keep selling for a long time. But also for readers, the FILEVAULT book and the Dropbox book, these are free updates. Even if you bought the book a year, 2 years ago, you get new information, and also people, as you say, who haven't read it before, can feel good that they're getting something that's totally current.
So again, we're just touching on the Dropbox books, but Dropbox book. You try to say that, folks.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. What kind of things do you cover that are new, other than just what you mentioned, the changing icons and the changing apps and all?
Yeah. So I'm just looking at my list of changes here. one of the things that Dropbox did, it used to be that everybody gets 2 gigabytes of storage for free, and then if you want to pay them for more storage, there were these various different tiers. And what Dropbox did a number of months ago was they eliminated the tiers. They said there is one paid plan now. And this paid plan is everybody who pays money, I guess it's $99, you gets a terabyte of storage. That's huge. So it was like a factor of 10 increase per dollar for what you got previously. Everybody gets a terabyte of storage. But also, there are a few new features that are only available to people who have one of these paid plans. And maybe they're interesting to you, maybe they aren't. But one of those features, when you're sharing a folder with somebody, usually if it's a whole folder, it's read-write. So both people can delete files, change files, or whatever in the folder. Now there's an option just for pro users to share with certain people that are read-only. So if you want, your team of designers or web developers or whatever to be able to mess with a bunch of files, but you want your client just to be able to see them and not modify them, now you as a pro user can set that up so where the internal team has read-write access, the external person has read-only access. Another pro-only feature is external wipe. So if you, it's a remote wipe feature, a little bit along the lines of like what Find My iPhone, iPad, Mac, whatever can do. If your Mac's stolen, you can go onto the website and say, okay, the next time this Mac connects to the internet, I want to just wipe everything that's in my Dropbox on that device so that it's of no use to the person that has it. There are a couple of other pro-only features, but those are some examples. Dropbox also killed a feature, or rather hobbled a feature that made me unhappy. There was this great feature called Pack Rat. And so normally you change files, you delete files on Dropbox, and you can go back to earlier versions up to 30 days. So I delete a file, and then 29 days later I realize, oh, I need that file that was in my Dropbox. I can go back and restore it. But it was only for 30 days. There was an optional feature you could pay Dropbox a little bit of money for called Pack Rat, which meant that all of your old versions and all of your deleted files were stored forever. Well, Dropbox decided that forever was a little bit too long, and they renamed this feature Extended Version History, kept it at the same price, and now instead of forever, it will only store those items for a year. So, a year is better than 30 days, but a lot less good than forever.
Can with that new feature, is that the length of time that you're paying for it? I mean, in other words, can you pay next year and continue to store them for another year?
No, you have to keep paying to keep the sort of rolling 1-year history, but it's not like if you pay a second year that they'll continue to preserve those files for an additional year, unfortunately. Because that's the way that the Pack Rat feature worked, which was as long as you kept paying, they would keep storing your files, and if you stopped paying for that feature, then they would delete them. But the new feature, unfortunately, doesn't work that way. So there were some changes like that. There were some things where just the process of doing certain activities on their website changed, buttons and menus and controls moved around, stuff like that. Just looking at my list again, some tips about, using camera upload on a mobile device and using the Carousel app. Just a few changes to the way you go about sharing files and folders. Nothing really earth-shattering, nothing huge. But the point is that if you were trying to follow the directions in the old version of the book, you would find that they didn't quite match up with what you see, and there may be these new features that you'd like to take advantage of, which I didn't tell you how to do. So now I do, and I'm sure, because this is the way the universe works, I updated the book, so like next week, Dropbox will change everything, and it'll go completely out of date again. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to my books. But for the moment anyway, it's pretty current. And by the way, it works for Macs, for Windows, for iOS, Android. It's a platform neutral book.
First of all, I think we should do a public service announcement here. And, folks, software developers, software service developers, please go right now and look in the dictionary and look up forever and unlimited. Because every time you guys use that, it comes back to bite you, and then you look kind of bad, and it's just too bad.
Yeah, now in fairness, Dropbox did say that for those people who had subscribed to the pack-rat feature, they could continue with forever. They were grandfathered in if they signed up by a certain date and kept paying the money. But anyone who hadn't already been a current paid subscriber was no longer eligible for it. So, but you're right. I mean, I have seen a lot of supposedly unlimited things get limits, and a lot of supposedly forever things be constrained temporally, and that's just never fun.
Cell phone plans. Oh, never mind. Well, we'll move on. One thing, though, I do want to comment. I think it's great, and I think it's really important when it comes to services like this that are creating things that go away. And the cloud services, I think this is the place that your efforts are best spent doing those upgrades. It's one thing not to, not to cover a new feature in a software program. It's a whole nother one, when you have a service like that and all of a sudden it's gone or it doesn't work the way that you just instructed. So I think that's time well spent.
We are talking about the cloud. Clouds are ephemeral. They drift in, they drift out, they disperse. We're not talking about underground secure vault here. So that is kind of the nature of the
Looks like a little creative dancing there. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I do Tai Chi, and there's I can't really demonstrate it because there's not enough vertical space here. But there's a move in Tai Chi called wave hands like clouds. So
okay, so you have some experience.
I do have some experience.
This edition of Mac Voices is sponsored by Smile, the makers of the newest version of Text Expander for iPhone and iPad. Folks, I used to use Text Expander Touch with a number of applications on iOS 7 that had been specifically enhanced with Text Expander functionality, and it was quite useful. All of the snippets I'd created for my desktop were right there waiting for me. And then something changed. iOS 8 was released, bringing custom keyboards to the iPhone and iPad. And then came Text Expander 3 and its custom keyboard. And suddenly, everything changed. Text Expander worked just like it did on my Mac, and just like it should. Anywhere a keyboard was available, the Text Expander 3 keyboard was available, and with it, snippets everywhere. Not just in specifically designated apps, but everywhere. Mail, messages, calendars, social media clients, everywhere. What I discovered was a whole new set of snippets that I needed to create because I use my iPhone and iPad in different ways. And there were lots of snippets that weren't useful on my Mac, but were massively useful in iOS. I can now construct text messages in a few seconds that would have normally taken a lot more seconds, maybe even minutes. And I can be clear on exactly what I want to say instead of having to revert to internet abbreviations or my own secret code that no one else understands. Emails can be answered in a much more complete fashion, and whatever signature I want to use is only a short snippet away. And that's just the beginning. Frequently accessed website URLs, date abbreviations, timestamps. The usefulness of Text Expander is limited only by your imagination and the recognition of things that you type over and over again. Getting Text Expander 3 for your iOS device opens up a whole new world of time saving. Get Text Expander 3 in the iOS App Store or visit smilesoftware.com to find out more about what it can do for you. And of course, don't forget Text Expander for your Mac, too. They both share the same snippet library, synced through Dropbox, so that what you create on your Mac is available in iOS, and what you create in iOS can be used on your Mac. Text Expander from Smile, my most used productivity utility. I love it, and you will too. Thanks to Smile for their support of Mac Voices. Well, let's move on to the next one. And this is another one of these books that you're releasing chapter by chapter on Tidbits.
Right.
And this one, let me see if I get it right, is Take Control of Security for the Mac User?
Take Control of Security for Mac Users. Yes,
Mac users.
You were very, very close.
Okay, good.
And you have to forgive me, there's a siren here.
Yeah, they're coming to get you.
Okay. there was a fire truck just drove by. Again, I have my window open because it is 84 degrees in San Diego here in February.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks a lot.
So yeah,
those of us in the Northeast really appreciate it.
I'll give you 10 of my degrees for. So right, so take control of security for Mac users, and part of the reason that we agonized over the title, and I'm not sure that we got the title right, but we agonized over it because we are aware, and I am particularly aware, that the topic of security tends to make people's eyes just glaze over. And when you say security, however much people might know that they need it and be concerned that they don't have enough of it, the topic of security tends to just sound too complicated and too geeky and too, I can't handle it. And so, in my last, effort on this topic,
wow,
this is 900 pages, and this is, as I think I've probably pointed out before, this can be used as a weapon, and that will protect your security in a really powerful way. But the thing is, honestly, nobody wants to read this book. No, it's not like, hey, I'm just going to kick back in my easy chair with my, my Kindle and zip through this book, and then I'll know how to be secure. No. We were asking for a pretty big commitment of time, effort, shelf space, and so we're trying a few things this time to make security friendlier, more approachable. It's not that big a deal. We're just going to tell you what to do and everything's going to be fine, that kind of thing. So one of the things is, as you point out, we're releasing it a chapter at a time on the web. Anybody can go on the Tidbits website and read the first 2 chapters for free. There are 12 chapters altogether. And if you have a paid Tidbits membership, then you can read the rest of the chapters as they appear, 1 per week. And then after all 12 have been published, this will be like, end of April, give or take, then we will put all of them together as a conventional take control book. It'll go on sale just like all of our other books. But basically, this is a way for Tidbits members to get an early preview of the book. It's done, it's been written, but as I get feedback from readers who are reading 1 chapter at a time, questions and comments, I'm actually making revisions and say, oh yes, I really do need to add a sidebar about this, and I really need to clarify that, so that the final product hopefully will answer the burning questions everybody has, and it'll be a lot better. So all you need is a Tidbits membership. And you can pay whatever you want for a Tidbits membership. If you want to pay us $1,000, we will gladly take your money. If you want to pay us $20, that's okay too. But I mean, this is going to be a $15 book. And for your $20, you not only get, early access to this entire book, you get tons of other benefits. You get, ad-free browsing on the Tidbits site. You get discounts on a very, very long list of products, and you get discounts on every single Take Control book. So it's well worth really any price, but this is just our latest example of the benefit that we're giving to Tidbits members is cheap and early access to this book.
Again, we've talked about it before. It's really important to support some of these independent projects, and unfortunately, in the last few months, we've seen at least a couple things disappear from the web and from
quite a few.
The access, because they couldn't make it, and they had different models. Everybody's trying a different model to monetize, and so if you like something, if you like Joe's books, if you like Tidbits and what they offer, throw them a couple bucks. Do what you can, because it's like a rainstorm. You may not get soaked, but you contribute to it, and that's good. Joe, the security book, and we don't want to go through the chapters necessarily chapter by chapter, or even certainly not the ones that have been not published yet. But is there a way to be, you think, reasonably secure without being terribly inconvenienced? That seems to be the biggest resistance to security.
Right. Well, that is the whole thing, and I've talked about this many times, including with you. There's always a trade-off between security. Well, there's usually a trade-off between security and convenience. I mean, I've written other things for Take Control that sort of touch on aspects of security. You know, my passwords book and my online privacy book and so forth, backups, and it's usually the case that the things. Okay, so like you lock your door, and locking your door keeps out intruders, but it means now you also have this extra procedure you have to go through to get in or out. Well, most of us lock our doors because we figure that pulling a key out of a pocket and taking those 5 seconds is worth it for the benefits. Unfortunately, the way Macs ship, the way just you get a new Mac and you turn it on, you start setting it up, the way it comes out of the box is not very secure. And so most of us have been sort of trained by Apple to expect super convenience all the time. And so doing something as simple as locking the door feels harder, it feels more inconvenient. And I understand that, and I appreciate it, and I feel sad about it. But I mean, we live in a we live in a world where doors need locks and where computers need passwords, and you got to do what you got to do. One thing I'm doing different in this book, though, that I have not done in my previous writing on security, is I'm not at all trying to say everybody has to do everything. Not every security measure is appropriate for everyone, and it's not just that you have to sort of guess, well, what would be the right trade-off between security and convenience? No, I'm going to tell you, because I have a little description early in the book of the various risk levels. So I just I thought it over, and I decided that I would divide the Mac users of the world into 4 categories, ranging from risk level 1, which is basically you have nothing to worry about, up to risk level 4, which is, you have everything to worry about. And so throughout the book, I sort of describe what would qualify you for one of these levels. And I say, okay, now this particular thing I'm talking about here, honestly, if you're risk level 2 or below, just ignore it. It's not worth your time. It doesn't matter. If you're risk level 3 or 4, yeah, you really better do that. And for each activity, I try to sort of imagine, what is the real threat, and who is most threatened by this thing that this particular this setting of the software, whatever it is, protects you against, so that I can give you really specific advice. It's not just, well, some people should use this, and if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. I'm trying to make it more fair and nuanced and approachable that way.
I would think that delivering this book in chapters to Take Control readers, it's good. First of all, you get the input, but I mean, let's face it, security is not, as you said earlier, it's not a topic that everybody just runs right out and gravitates to. So if you can kind of take it a chapter at a time, once every week or 2 weeks, and get more information and make you aware of it, it's spoon feeding you in an acceptable fashion, I would think.
Right. So there is that. There's also the fact that the whole book, when it's all finished, I don't have an exact page count yet because, we're still waiting for some feedback, but it looks like it's going to be around 160 pages. So basically, 1/6 the length of this Mac Security Bible. And not only am I trying to keep it relatively concise, I'm also trying really hard to tone down the jargon. So I'm repeatedly biting my tongue and saying, okay, I would love to explain to you exactly how this technology works and what's going on behind the scenes and all that stuff, but I'm just not going to. I'm going to give you a couple of sentences to orient you to what's going on, and then I'm going to say, and so to keep out the bad guys, do this if you're at this risk level, and do this if you're at this risk level. I'm oversimplifying a bit. I do go into a little more detail than that. But I'm trying really hard to to keep the bar low. So you don't need to have a pocket protector and a propeller beanie. You don't need to know all the TLAs and all the stuff. You just say, look, what am I facing here? If I'm browsing the web, if I'm creating a new user account for my Mac, or if I'm sending email or whatever it is, what are the real risks that a person like me might face? What don't I know about that I'm only getting myself into trouble with? And what should I do? And so that's what I tell you. Here's what you should do. And you can choose not to do this. And if you choose not to do this, here are, the pros and cons. I'm not trying to say everybody has to do the same thing. I'm not even trying to say that everybody with a particular risk level needs to do the same thing. I'm more saying I want you to understand what you're up against. I'm revealing the crime statistics in your neighborhood and telling you that, well, 3 houses on this block got robbed last year. Take whatever action you feel is appropriate. So
I love that analogy. In fact, I was thinking about that same kind of analogy, that there are places in any given city that you can park your car, and if you left the keys in by accident, it's like, oh, shoot, you might not be comfortable with it, but it's probably going to be there when you get back. And then there are other places that you probably can't take 3 steps away before it's gone. I mean, it's too bad. That's just the way it is. And so I really like the threat assessment level thing that you're doing. Yeah.
Well, it's not perfect. And, for example, somebody wrote to me and he said, well, I get what you're saying about these risk levels, but, at home, I feel like I'm kind of a 1 or a 2, but then I put my MacBook Air in my backpack and I go out to the coffee shop, then maybe I'm a 3 or a 4. Like, well, okay, maybe so. And my advice for someone in that situation is take the measures that are appropriate for the highest risk level you're going to encounter. It's okay if you're more secure than you need to be when you're at home, but it's not okay if you're like, okay, I'm going out, so I have to remember when the next time I open my computer, I have to do this and this and this and this. Well, you're probably going to forget, or you're not going to get into that habit, or something's going to go wrong. So I prefer to just say, let's not make this about your location. Let's just say, for any particular person, consider the range of things that you're going to do on your Mac and where you're going to do those things, and pick a number, and then set up things accordingly.
Joe, it struck me as you were talking that writing a book about Mac security isn't like it used to be. Probably not like when you published that monster you just showed. Now it's got to be Mac, cloud, internet, mobile security. It was one thing when it was sitting on your desk, but now, like you said, when you throw your MacBook Air in your backpack and take it to the coffee shop or any of that, or even when you're sitting at home and you're logging into websites, whole different ball game now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, a large percentage of the security issues that any Mac user will face are basically network security problems of one sort or another. It's either you're trying to communicate with somebody else securely, or you're trying to prevent someone else from breaking in over the network. I mean, there are things where you have to be concerned about your device's physical security, and what if somebody else who, a colleague or a friend actually comes up to your Mac and starts typing on it, things like that. But yeah, absolutely. The majority of things you need to worry about have to do with the internet in some form or fashion. And so I talk about iCloud security, and I talk about topics that I have touched on in other books, like Wi-Fi security, Wi-Fi encryption and virtual private networks and things like that. Of course, I talk about passwords, but I try to hit as many different aspects of keeping your data safe as possible, because even though you have this device in front of you, that's your Mac, and that's what you're trying to keep secure, what you're really trying to keep secure is your data and your information. And as soon as you connect it to the internet, and you're browsing the web, you're doing Twitter and Facebook, and you're sharing files, and you're doing whatever you do, there are all sorts of routes by which that information can escape out into the wild, and either it escapes or someone, breaks in and gets it, and this is what leads to identity theft and what leads to just all kinds of bad things happening. So don't let bad things happen to you if you can avoid it.
What are some of the things that people ask you most, Joe, when it comes to this kind of security, the security questions and all? You're getting feedback on it. What do people say? Hey, Joe, I'd really like to see you do a chapter on.
Excuse me. I don't think I've really had requests of that sort, because we posted the table of contents, so people kind of know roughly what they're going to be getting in future chapters. There are a lot of things where, I'm talking about something like, I'm talking about some aspect of the security and privacy preferences pane, and people say, oh, don't forget to mention this, and you better talk about that. And like, yeah, I do in chapter 5 or whatever. It's like there are a lot of things where people are like, yeah, but you didn't mention. I know, I'll mention it later. Don't worry. You can't see that when you're reading one chapter at a time, of course, but there have been a couple of things that have been pointed out where, yeah, I should probably go ahead and mention this sooner, or put in a cross-reference or something like that. The topics that really keep coming up as points of confusion or concern, interestingly enough, are invariably passwords, backups, and FileVault, and in particular how those various things interact with each other. So things like, okay, so I have FileVault turned on and I have a time machine backup. Does that automatically mean that my backup is encrypted? Well, no. And just things like how these different security technologies affect each other, and sometimes break each other, and sometimes enhance each other. So stuff like that. I keep having people ask me things like, all right, but backups, like, okay, yeah, I should have backups, but if I'm using Time Machine and I've got my entire Mac backed up, why do I also need a bootable duplicate? Because after all, I can restore my entire disk from Time Machine. And I say, well, yes, you absolutely can do that. It'll take you overnight, though, so I hope you weren't planning to do anything with your Mac in the meantime. So there are just a lot of things like that where it's not that it's not that somebody's saying, oh, I don't believe in backups, or I don't believe in using good passwords or whatever. It's more like, yeah, but do you really need to do this? Because I'm pretty sure it's okay if I just, things like, well, I have a password for my Mac, a user account password, and I logged out. So surely my data is safe if my Mac is stolen because nobody else knows that password. And no, not at all. So, but I have to explain all that stuff, because it's easy for someone to come to that conclusion just based on what they're seeing, because what they're thinking is, well, I wouldn't know how to get past this. I wouldn't know how to get at my own data without a password, so surely nobody else can either. But they really can. I can. So the question is really, can you outsmart me? And if you can't outsmart me, then you need to take stronger security measures.
Well, we're going to be having you come back and talk more about the specifics of the book once the book is completely published and ready to be bought as a book. But for right now, folks, go, if you're not a Tidbits member, please subscribe. That way you'll not only get all the great Tidbits coverage, you'll also get this information from Joe as he brings it out. And maybe you can influence the contents of the rest of the book as you go. So, it's a win-win-win.
Right on.
So, Take Control books, of course, to get the FileVault book and the Dropbox book that we were talking about, and that's where you'll take control of security for Mac users when it comes out. Right. Anything else going on, Joe, that we should know about, or? Joe, that's an evil laugh.
There are so many things going on. I have 4 or 5 other books that are in the queue to get updates of various degrees, either something happened in Yosemite or something happened with software or whatever, and so I will be churning through those, and I will reveal more about those as time goes on. I hate to say too much because in my world, schedules have a way of getting they're quite plastic. They're quite flexible. You think something's going to happen at a particular time, and then things change. So updates will happen, new books will happen, but as we've mentioned before, this book, Take Control of Security for Mac Users, is my 50th Take Control title. So when it is officially published, in the conventional way, I'm planning to do something special to commemorate that, and we'll talk about that the next time.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, that means you're going to be back here a lot in 2015 to talk about all kinds of projects. So I'm looking forward to it already, just to see what you're up to next.
I will keep typing.
Great, great. Well, stay cool out there.
I'll do my best.
I knew you would. Good to see you, Joe. Thanks so much.
See you too, Chuck.
Folks, it's great to see you too. We hope you'll join us back here on Mac Voices. We've got lots more great stuff coming from Joe and from all of our other guests, and there's always new stuff coming down the road, so you'll find it right here. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the Mac Voices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest Mac Voices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free Mac Voices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.